All right, welcome to the second panel for Amtgard Leadership University here at Keep on the Borderlands. This one we're going to be focused on Feastocrat. Let's be honest, Amtgarders love it cheap, but they want it great. They want it timely, but they also want to make sure it's convenient to what they want to do around battle games. You guys are going to walk us through exactly how we get there from here. What I'd like you to do is do me a favor, introduce yourself. We'll start from the left going to the right. Give me a little bit about why you're on the panel. Qualify yourself for those that are watching that may not know you. And then give me a quick 30, 60-second perspective on what you hope we talk about. Because I'll use that to make sure we talk about it today, all right? So Kenshin, we'll start with you.
All right, hi, I'm Kenshin. I'm from Tyedye. I've cooked several feasts. I attended culinary school, graduated in 2012. I'm currently a chef. I guess the reason I'm here is because I usually find myself in the kitchen no matter what, no matter where I'm at, what kingdom I'm in, if I know people or not. That's just kind of where I gravitate to. So I guess just time served kind of vets me a little bit, at least in some way.
What do you hope we talk about today?
I would like to talk a little about food safety because I feel like it's something that gets overlooked a lot in Amtgard. Not necessarily people trying to do stuff maliciously or just not caring, but maybe they just don't know. Maybe they just haven't heard before.
Okay. Tyedye?
I'm Tyedye. I'm part of the Kingdom of Taldagor, though I started out in Winter's Edge under Neverwinter. I've run a lot of feasts. Most have been with real kitchens, which was nice, but I've had to adjust with TD to the primitive camping situations, which has been interesting. And my big focus is getting feast out on time, because if you can get a good feast out on time, that makes the whole event run more smoothly.
Okay. Queball?
My name is Queball Iron Wolf. I'm originally from the Bryan College Station area, which is the wetlands. The last 3 years I've been up here in the Principality of Polaris under Rising Winds. I've been training under the Rogers Raiders for close to 20 years now. I like to think that we're one of the huge forces in Amtgard when putting out feasts, and what I kind of want to focus on is feastocrating is not just a show up, buy some stuff at Walmart and cook it, but it is a 6-month planning aspect of it for budgeting, for getting all your stuff on timetables, and it's logistics, not just serving food. And it's not the pricing of it is not just buying it all from one spot and just go from it, but you can make it on time, on budget with proper planning.
Crom?
I'm Crom Iron Wolf. I'm also from the wetlands. I've been doing feasts now on and off for roughly about 20-25 years. I've been blessed to be able to do some of the biggest events and the biggest number of events. This is actually this event will be the biggest we've ever done. Our biggest before was 675, which was last year. But what I like to talk about, and I'm going to kind of go in with what Queball said, is logistics and understanding the seriousness of it and why it will make you successful. How you do something is great. You have a good recipe, you know how to do it, but without logistics, you can't make all the moving parts, the process fit. And when you do, like we're talking about on time and such, without it, you're just flying in the night and who knows what happens.
All right. Just because I think quite a few folks probably got intimidated by all of a sudden knowing that it's a 6-month plan. Queball, let's start there. Let's talk about logistics before they shut off the computer and walk away.
So what I'm used to from where I come is feast is a bidding process. A few kingdoms and whatnot have done it separately where nobody really wants to put into it, because I think it is a daunting task, and there's been long lines of just mediocre to bad feast that it's thankless. But if you get into the aspect that it's a planning process and a bidding process, you know what the autocrat wants for their feast, besides pork or chicken or whatnot, and you can go into the planning. The pre-cook is very important. You don't just show up and cook it. You want to cook your same meal for a smaller portion that you can, multiply or whatnot for the planning or whatnot. It's not just I don't know, you have to ask a specific question. It's a long, hour-long conversation for the whole, but you want to set up a timetable of your test cook. You want to know different times of the year, different types of meats are, the fall like we're in, pork is usually a bit cheaper up here, whereas Christmas or beginning of the year, beef is a little cheaper. Just going the budget and costs like that.
Okay, so I'll get a little bit more focused, and this is going to come to each of you.
Okay.
You mentioned about bid. We're going to bid for a feast and stuff like that. Without going too much into detail, what are some broad categories that I should consider? You talked about pre-cooking, stuff like that. Some broad categories that I need to start thinking about whenever I'm going to start brainstorming my bid.
Okay. Just what actual meal is it? 20 years ago, we only served Saturday night feast. The Friday night dinner, Saturday breakfast, Saturday lunch was uncommon. But as we're moving into, as we've gone on the years, it's more of just multiple meals. Now, of course, your main feast, your court setting is going to be, more expensive than the rest, and you're going to have to budget. But first, you want to know, what is your budget going to look like? What is the kingdom you're cooking? How many people and how much are they looking to pay for a person? And that's what you start your basis under.
Okay, so the budget, obviously, what you got to work with, right?
Right.
Don't exaggerate your hopes
Right.
off of a penny budget. Crom, what are some things you start thinking about?
To piggyback off what you just said, being realistic. You should know your skill set, what you're good at. I've known people who can barbecue with the best. You put them in a saute station, they're hemmed up. But again, you start budget and numbers. Autocrat and or monarch, depending on how it's done in different kingdoms, what's the flavor of what they want? If they don't care, they just want hot food for people, then you have a little bit more leeway. But stay within your wheelhouse. If you want to try to experiment, do something small. Find a Friday night or Friday afternoon thing to experiment. Don't do it on the big stage.
Okay.
That's a hard lesson to learn, actually. Is that don't do something you're not ready for or something that you're unfamiliar with.
Right.
Speak up for me a little bit.
I apologize. I was just saying that what Crom said was absolutely true. I had to learn that lesson myself the hard way about not doing something that you're not completely comfortable with, or where you don't know your equipment too well or something like that. I actually got into that hole 2 years ago at Keep because we had a new to us piece of equipment that was really old and kind of run down, and we used it to cook feast, and it was really, really tough. Like, it turned out to be a real pain in the butt for a lot of people. So make sure not only that you know yourself and what you're able to do, but what your equipment is able to do and where you're going to be and what you're going to have available to you. Because if you come out to a site like this and you don't come prepared like these guys, the Raiders came prepared always. Like, they come with a trailer, they got smokers, they got the whole thing. But out here, there's no kitchen. There's not even a grill set into the ground, so you can just dump some charcoal in it and start it up. You have to bring everything. So if you don't bring it, then you got to cook feast, and you haven't worked that out with somebody beforehand, then you're gonna find yourself in a real bad situation. I remember one of the first feasts I cooked was a long time ago. Thank God, it was mostly all like pre-cooked. I got pulled pork that was already smoked and ready to go. I just had to get it hot. But we were at an extremely primitive site, like probably 30, 40 minutes away from the nearest civilization. But it was free for us to use, which is why we went there. So I got in the position I'm going to have to cook all this food, and I had no way at all to cook it. So I had to dig a ditch and build a fire in a ditch, and then put like grates over the fire in the ditch and cook feast in a ditch. And it was really hard and really, it came out okay. Like, everybody ate it, nobody got sick, but it was, just make sure you're prepared and make sure you know what you're getting into.
So Jake sort of stole my answer, because it was going to be know what you have to work with. That is the biggest thing to me, because when I start like planning what I'm going to make, I sit there and think, what can I cook easily on this equipment? And that's not so much of an issue for the Raiders with their portable things. But when we had the smoker, I was trying to figure out what I could put in the smoker that would feed enough people. What can I get from people? Right now we've got a lot of like turkey fryers and pots. So if I was going to do a feast right now, I would think, what can I put in pots that will easily feed a lot of people that can be heated up quickly?
Okay, so let's talk about that. So we've built, I think, a little bit of the logistics, some considerations and stuff, and we're going to work them back in as we go. So let's talk to the different audiences. Shire, barony level. I've got an event. If I bring in 30, 40 people, I'm pretty excited. Okay. What would be a realistic? I don't want to be too broad here. Let's talk. What's a realistic feast and menu? So not a lot of the logistics, but if I sit there and said, "Hey, we're throwing together a small event, only got whatever money we can pass the hat to get," what's some thoughts that come to mind? Crom?
Actually, it's I find it going smaller broadens your perspective.
Absolutely.
Right? Because there's a lot of things that you can do on a small scale. Right? Even with just a regular old grill box. I mean, as you know, you could turn it into a saute station easy.
Yep.
You know, I guess the best thing to say is, what do you like to cook, especially if you're starting out. I'm really great at a cheese tortellini with grilled chicken. You know what? If doing a small group, do that, right? Get some confidence in that. Understand what it means going from, hey, I did this for 20 people, oh, I'm going to go to 40. What does that mean?
Okay. Keep on.
I actually enjoy the small feast better. Again, it's just less work. One of the things we like is to experiment. Take the chicken, smash it and really thin, roll it up into something, and doing that for 500 is a lot more difficult than doing it for 20 to 30 people.
It's a whole lot of pounding.
I mean, it's the same amount of work. It's just less of your time or whatnot, and it gets old after a few hundred. But you're right, and then also smaller, you can kind of cater to what they want. With a large thing like this, of course, there's going to be people allergic to mushrooms like last year or something. With small, you can kind of cater more easy to that with finding. So the sky's the limit with that.
Right.
And food's cheap. Restaurants are expensive. Whatever they cook, you can do steaks for $10 to $15 a person at a smaller level.
You can do really, really nice steaks for
Right.
15.
So it's just, I don't know what to say. It's just, you have a smaller feast, just talk your people, and a grill that feeds a family of 4 can easily feed a park of 20 in that amount of time.
Tada?
I've actually done very few park level feasts, and I have more trouble scaling it down, so I am clearly the opposite of everyone else here. I mean, don't be afraid to just do hot dogs and hamburgers if that's what you can do. Mix it up, get toppings, get sides. Potlucks tend to go poorly unless you are a very close-knit park. I've seen a lot of potlucks where it's just the one person.
Like 2 people bring.
Yeah. So I would not rely on those, even though people seem to like doing them. But hot dogs, hamburgers, macaroni salad, and you're good. And people are really unlikely to complain. Just keep it simple, keep it to things people will eat.
Okay.
Probably one of the best feasts I've ever done on a small scale was a few years ago. We did a park feast for Jupiter Stones, Rathius and I. We did kebabs, shish kebabs. And, it was about 2 hours of prep the night before, getting everything cut up and skewered. It wasn't a lot of work. We just stood over the grill for a little while. But it came out really great. Everybody really enjoyed it. And it was really cheap. Like, just chicken and vegetables, some pieces of pineapple, some peppers here. This is really easy. Put stuff on a stick, throw it on the grill. People are going to love it. It looks good. Feel like, man, this is really good food. And it took you almost no time and effort. And very little cost. So, stuff like that on a small scale is great. Trying to do, if you got 600 people and you're doing 1,200 skewers, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And that's really time consuming. And you're probably going to get some food's going to go bad, and the time is not to sit there, and you don't want to mess with that. So it's very important to know when you're scaling up and down like that, what it's going to take to prep what you've got, and what it's going to take to hold it until you cook it. I think that's sort of touching on something I wanted to talk about earlier is food safety procedures and stuff like that. When you hold food that's not cooked, you have to keep it at a certain temperature or it becomes dangerous. It's what's called the food temperature danger zone, like Kenny Loggins song, danger zone. And it's between 40 degrees and 140 degrees. Anywhere in that range is dangerous for food to be at for any length of time. After 2 hours, if it's 40 degrees and less than 140 degrees for 2 hours, it's done. It's gone. It's trash. So, and when you're cooking something and then you want to get it cold, you got 4 hours to get it cold, or it's trash. So you have to keep in mind when you're making something like this, can I hold this cold on site? Will this steak, will this keep? because if it gets warm, that's when people start getting sick. That's when illness creeps in and bacteria can form. Bacteria has a really hard time breeding below 40 degrees, and it dies at over 140 degrees. There's a little cool graph thing that's got like a lag phase and a log phase, and I would draw it, but I'm not going to do that. So that's a really big thing to keep in mind is whenever you're doing any scale, but especially large scale, is to keep in mind that you have got to keep this food safe, or you're going to make somebody sick. And that happens a lot at Amtgard, I think. Just people don't know that. They don't think about it. I've eaten several feasts. I remember one a few years ago, or not a few years ago, it's been several years ago now at Fallen Rock. I'm not going to name any names as to who made the bread bowls, but lots and lots of people got sick because they were hollowing out bread bowls with their bare hands and not observing food safety regulation at all in any way. Because they just didn't know. It's not like they were trying to be gross, they just didn't know.
Right. So let's talk about that. I'm experienced, small part. Again, trying to build it up. I'm thoroughly intimidated now. Not only am I, they're expecting Cornish hens and greatness because Crom said it could happen at a small part.
Definitely can, yeah.
But now I'm going to kill everybody because I have no idea what you just talked about, the danger zone. Where do I find out that information?
You can find it online. There's a material. It's called ServSafe, ServSafe. It's all one word. It's a certification that most food workers have to go through. There's a couple different levels to it. There's a food handler's level, which is like a couple of hours. It's a course. You can take a test. You get a card in the mail, and you're food safe certified. You're ServSafe certified. There's a food handler manager course, which is like a college class, and that takes a few months, and that goes a lot more in depth into like what specific foodborne illnesses are and what they do and things like that. But you can get the basic information online pretty easy. And I think if you wanted to pay I think it's like $50 to take the test. But then you take the test, it's good for, I think, 5 years. Your certification stays good for 5 years. And you got a card that says, I know how to handle food safely. So I think when I was in Golden Vale at an event up there last year, they had a requirement for any meal, at least one person in the kitchen had to have that certification. And that's a health code in a lot of places, is that at least one person in the kitchen at all times has to have that card, or at least some form of it.
Okay. And we'll try and get that added to the link to the ServSafe and some
I
different
can
resources
provide
on
you
the
some
thing.
links to that.
Okay, so again, going down the logistics trail, I know in 6 months I'm going to be running this regardless of whatever. I'm the Feastocrat. Looking into the different resources, sounds like for a small event I can do it off of a grill or two. We could probably borrow those and get that going. Where do I get the meat from? Do we run to Walmart? Do we run to Sam's? Publix? What's the secret that you guys have that we can do it, stretch our dollar? Crom?
The best thing I could say on this, because I'm very selective, is know your community. Know where you're going. Down in Texas, the Sam's Club out near my area, they can get any cut I want, and it's always quality. And it's always about the median price, not the cheapest, not the most expensive, right? But if I'm going for, like, say, a pork loin, right, I know that the HEB nearby, they've run really good specials, and it's the same type of pork loin from the same manufacturer, distributor in Texas that the Sam's is getting. The thing is know your vendors, right, and try things out. Comes with test cooking, right, and understanding that what you're buying is going to get you what you want, and then find that quality that you want for the price that's effective. Just know where your stuff is. College Station, they have great meat market. We've gone in several times and said, I need specifically this, and they can get us that, and they've always had quality. If you're lucky to have something like that, use it. If not, check out your local stores. If you got a Whole Foods, go down there. It might be a little more pricey, but different. Something else I'd like to put out there is look at your halal stores, especially for meat. Halal is a very high standard for how they prepare their meat for transport and consumption, which leads to a higher quality. Less of all the other stuff, very clean, very pure. A little more expensive, but if that's what you're going for, allot your money to that.
Okay.
Keep trying to keep in budget, though. I'm kind of going the opposite way. Right. If you plan this is not a 2 week before the event type thing. Oh, I need to buy all this food. If you do the bid, you do the test cook, plan the food. Local stores always have something on special every week. Buy it, freeze it. It's for an Amtgard event. You're right. If it's for a smaller thing, you want it fresh and whatnot. But for 600-700 people, if you can get it cheaper, go. There's no shame in freezing it if you do it properly or whatnot. And you can look that up online, just Googling how to do it properly, and it turns out just as fine. But you need to shop around. Sam's, Costco, all the major stores, they have different prices on every single thing, depending on, they all have different suppliers, depending on what was in surplus, depending on the price and whatnot. And your different area around the country, your Iowa area has a lot more pork. Pork's going to be cheaper. Your Texas area has a lot more beef. Beef's going to be cheaper. You just need to know what your area grows or whatnot, and it's just going to be cheaper there. I mean, for instance, corn up here right now, with corn just in season, you can get it pretty cheap. And that's what you need to shop around. It's not just showing up at one place and going.
Okay. Did you want to?
I got something. I kind of cheated that. If you or someone you know in your park or your kingdom works for a restaurant, which like I do, restaurants all have distributors, right? They get all their food from a guy with a semi-truck, and he brings it every week. They have this big catalog full of stuff they order, and what they do is they pare it down, and they have an ordering sheet, and they only order things off this sheet. And sometimes they have it worked out to where that's all they're really able to order, but sometimes depending on your distributor and who you go through, you can order whatever you want off their catalog or their website anytime. So I've done this I did it for the lunch yesterday, the sandwiches. I ordered all that meat through my work. I had to slice it all myself, but it was way cheaper than it would have been had I gone down to Food for Less or something like that and just tried to fill up a cart with a bunch of packages of turkey and ham and stuff. So if you have access to that and you're able to do that, that's the way I would go every time if I had the choice, is to go through a distributor, because you're going to get it cheaper, and bulk stuff is going to be way easier to find, and it's usually going to be a good quality stuff. Like the brand I used for the meat yesterday is a Block and Barrel. It's a pretty well used brand that goes through a lot of restaurants. If you eat pretty much anywhere, you probably had Block and Barrel products. If you ate here yesterday, you had. But I got a really great deal on it. Like I said, I had to slice it and transport it myself, but that was 30 minutes worth of work and rounding up a couple coolers, so it really wasn't that bad. The rest of everything I did on site. So if that's an option for you, if you work in a restaurant, or if someone you know works in a restaurant, explore that. Talk to the manager, whoever does all the ordering, and they. Sometimes it's a little harder to do if it's like a chain place. Like if you work at Applebee's, you're probably not going to be able to pull that off. But if you work at like a local type mom and pop sort of deal, they'll usually work with you.
Okay.
It's not too much. It's not too hard for them to do.
So since we talked a little bit about budget, and you decided that you were going to be the banner bearer, if you will, Queball, how do you build your budget? I mean, is it just a lump of money and I walk in Pretty Woman style and hand it to the shopkeeper?
So you start out with what the autocrat is expecting for it. Usually, so we knew going into this event that with Olympiad being here, it was going to break 700. We knew that, and just from past experiences, the Thursday night dinner is going to probably be about a little over half that number, and you got to estimate exactly how many you go. And as us in the Raiders, we always do an extra 20% no matter what. We're all bigger guys in the group, so we like eating a little more. So plan for that, and if we get that, great. If not, when we start having to cut down the portions, it just goes to a more normal size. So with the budget, everything's, again, like you said in the beginning, people want their food. People want their food cheap, people want their food warm, and people want their food on time at their convenience. So you're not getting $6-7 a person at any Amtgard event, no matter what. The main feast maybe up to $5, more like $2 to $3 is your budget per person for their estimated numbers. So that's what you have to work with, and that encompasses the entire meal, not just the protein, not just this. So that's what you're looking for, and that's what you're shopping around.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything?
I highly suggest spreadsheets. When I get my recipes, everything I'm going to do, I break it down per, you have recipe for 20 people, you're cooking for 800, plus it up, right? Do a budget buy. I'm going to buy all of this, go to the store, walk the store, write the price in, especially about a month out. Prices will fluctuate, but that. Use your spreadsheet to calculate it all up so that when you're thinking $800, yeah, I got that. When you actually go look at hardcore what's actually there, you're like, ooh, well, you know what? I would have loved to have done heavy whipping cream with my mashed potatoes, but it'd be cheaper to do with milk and still be quality, so I'm just going to step that down to save money, right? Use your spreadsheets. If you don't know how to use Excel by this point, I mean, I'm an old man and I can do it. Figure it out because it'll save you. It will save you.
With the spreadsheets as well, one important thing is to look at the quantity of the food that you're buying. That's thrown me off a lot. So I actually I have the item, I have the quantity it comes in, how many of that quantity I need, and how much that total is. And then I'll do that so when I'm making my preliminary budget to give to the autocrat when they're planning, they came to me and said, hey, we want you to do a feast. I just go on like the Walmart website and get the prices for everything because I know that I can probably shop around and get them cheaper. But that gives me a good basis. And then I make that spreadsheet with those columns and I do that for each store that I'm looking at. And that seems to be giving, and the extra from the, not shopping around generally keeps me under budget.
Okay. So I've got my budget. Oh.
Can I add one thing to
Yeah.
this? Most grocery stores and most stores have the price per ounce. And if you convert everything to ounces, I'm going to need 8 ounces of meat per person. It has the price per ounce, and you use that for your budgeting.
Yes, but if you need, 5 ounces, or if it comes in 5-ounce packages and you need 7 ounces of meat,
Right.
you can only buy it in
No.
10-ounce
But tracking
quantities.
both
That's
obviously
why.
has value, so
Yeah.
you may have to buy extra because it comes in
Yeah.
bigger bulk
Right.
than you need, right? Okay. So I've got my budget. I know I've got a small barony. What do we say? About 40, 50 people. I've got it mapped out. Now I'm thinking timeline. It takes about an hour for me to cook dinner. Is that enough? How do I figure out what's enough?
No.
Teach me, Obi-Wan. Kenshin. Oh, Crom.
Sorry, this is a big thing with me. Diebold and I set this in motion many years ago, right? What we do is invite our friends over and promise them beer, and we set up either my house or his house exactly the conditions we're going to roll into, right? If we know we have a little bit of a kitchen, then we use a little bit of the kitchen there. We bring the pit out, we set it up exactly, and then we run through the feast exactly like we want to cook it. And then all the little things that you don't think about on the day, we'll get there and mark your time. Oh yeah, look, it takes about an hour to grill up these pork chops. Then you realize actually it's about an hour and a half because you're not counting for the screwing around time of moving things from here to there and such.
Running back and forth, yeah.
Take copious notes and build your timeline. Be honest about it and then add a little extra. Always build into your timeline this like an accordion. Because if you stretch out, you need room to stretch out into it. If you make a schedule of work of your work, and you don't have that kind of growth area, you're going to strangle yourself because then you're stuck. You have no further time.
So my pre-cook isn't just about testing the recipe and making sure everybody likes the taste. It's about mapping
It's
my entire
also
piece.
about
It's a
mapping
rehearsal.
your work.
Okay.
Plus, and like I said, also with you and your friends, it's a great time. And the camaraderie and all of that, and it get your juices going for when the event comes. Especially when it comes off good, and you're like, oh yeah, I could do this. Your confidence is huge. Anything you do to build it.
So Queball, do I put that in my budget?
The test cook? No. That is not
No,
part of the...
no.
Okay.
I never have.
Okay.
But I've been lucky to have the money to not have to.
Sure. So it's consideration, right?
Right.
Okay, so we're getting a little bit closer to the event. What's best, buffet line serving or actually having servers?
That
Family style.
depends.
We are completely 100% against lines. We are 100% serve when we do feast.
The bigger you get, the worse it gets.
The worse the buffet line gets?
Yep.
the way I've always looked at it, always, since Spring War freaking 96. You know, you have 500 people standing in a line getting grouchier and grouchier. You know, no matter how good the food is, those guys, those last 100 people, it's no matter what you do. You turn it on its head, family style, the bros all get to sit around the table and they're snacking, they're BSing, smoking and joking, right, drinking, and all of a sudden, boom, food drops on the table and it's there. And they're like, whoa, and you roll into it. It's logistically harder. You have to have more people. But for an event, everyone is happier.
Yep.
You know, it just, tensions are lower. And even if you are subpar on your cook, people are so relaxed that most of them won't care. You know?
Okay. Kenshin, you look eager.
Yeah, I want to kind of tack onto that a little bit. People will get really angry the longer they have to wait for their food. Because they're like, we were promised food at 7 o'clock, and it's 8:30. Why haven't we eaten yet? And, you know, like you said, it doesn't matter what you serve at that point, because they're not going to remember what they ate. They're just going to remember how long they waited. They're going to remember how long they stood in line, and how long they had to wait, and how cold their food was, and how everybody else was already done by the time they got to sit down. That's all they're going to remember. So I've done it pretty much every conceivable way, just trying to find the best way. Buffet lines do suck really bad. They're awful, and I wish that I had never even used them in any way at any point. But, you know, you live and you learn, I guess. Family style is a great way to do it, but what that means, in case you don't know what family style means, is when you serve an entire table off of like a big tray or out of a big bowl or something like that. So the table pretty much just, you know, takes one and passes it down. And then it's all just right there, and if they need more, you know, you just get it for the table. You don't get it for an individual, or they don't have to go through a line, something like that. If you want to do like individual service, I've done this before at a feast. It was at a TD feast a few years back when we had an event at a really cool site, had a swimming pool and all that. Everybody really loved it. But then we were going to cook feast on the big outdoor grill, and it started pouring down rain. But luckily they had a kitchen, which, you know, didn't have a grill. It had a really small flat top grill about this, you know, about so wide, and it had a 12-eye burner. So I'm sitting skillets on this 12-eye burner making burgers in skillets, and we're doing everything short order. I made a menu that people could order from, not just like, you get this, and that's what you get. That's what feast is. It's like you have a choice of like 6 different sandwiches, and you just tell this, you know, your server what you want. They bring it back, and I have it made, and they take it out to you. So I just make all 7 kinds of my sandwiches, just keep them going. And as they're getting ordered, they're just kind of filtering out while they're still hot. That went off really well, but the only reason I think it went so well was because I had a really great serving team. I had plenty of people, and the number of people I had to serve was only about 100, 150. It really wasn't. It wasn't something like 600. We did a service like that once for the very first keep. It was either the very first keep or the second keep. I don't remember. But we did serving like that where it was just service to one seat. But that takes up a lot of time. So family style, I think, is probably your best bet.
Okay, so I've decided on family style. Everybody's raving. They're all excited. We're ready to rock. What do I do whenever my servers are for sizing? I mean, we've got the recipe. We've got it figured out. It says it's going to feed 50 people. How do I manage that? Tips? What works?
Mathematics. You know, what I do is food's coming off, and we'll do here. We're going to have 80 tables. We're going to have 80 platters. So every hot hold that I put is for a platter. Right? Granted, we'll use more tins, but now I know grab a tin and put it on the platter and sell it. Right? Means it'll go out to the table. Thinking in advance of that, so you're not worried about putting too much food going out to a table. That was the direction you were heading.
Well, do you set up like an expediter to make sure the servers? So we're talking family style, but you know nobody's getting extra.
There's always expo.
Okay.
And usually, like with us, it's me. Sometimes Queball's done it, and other people have their little jobs. But you always need to. You always need to have that person who's watching as the food goes out. Oh wait, that's a little bit too much. You need to back off. You know, it's always better to have a little in reserve than blow it all out there and people still hadn't eaten.
Okay.
Yeah, if you are doing a buffet line for whatever reason, measured serving spoons are really good. They'll solve a lot of issues. When it's family style, the people at the tables can generally modify their own amounts. So it's just the platter going out that matters, and then I don't know, being exact has never seemed that important when it's family style.
Okay. Because they self-police, right?
Yeah.
in theory.
And tables will share amongst themselves if someone gets more and someone gets less.
Right. It's part of human nature, right?
Yeah.
You're at the buffet line, and it's your plate, and you're just going.
Yeah.
I want
You're
my
sitting
plate.
out there, and you're looking at the people around you, and you take too much. They're all looking at
You're
you.
like, hey,
Yeah.
So people tend to be a little bit more judicious.
No, and fair approach. Queball, you talked about you've been training with Rogers Raiders. How does somebody get, not necessarily in Rogers Raiders, but so you've got somebody out there in internet land or sitting here, they want to try too, but they don't want to be fistocrat. They're not ready for that. How do they get involved? How do they
Well,
start?
like as Amtgard has gone, instead of a Saturday night meal to a Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday lunch, and I guarantee every single one of those feasts want helpers. There's always low-level rows to be had serving. There's always low-level rows to be had cleaning up. There's always a foot in the door. Just show up, ask, what can I do, and you start picking stuff up. It's a community. It's a community effort. We're not get out of our kitchen type people. I've never met anybody that was a get out of my kitchen type people. There's always something to do, and once you get comfortable with them, starting your own group, starting your own household, whatnot. It's something I love doing in this game, is cooking feast and serving it and seeing the looks on people's faces and attaboys. But there's always room for more people, and I've never had a problem finding help. I've never had a problem getting servers. I've never had a problem getting anything. And if it's something you want to do, seek it out.
If they tell you they don't need help, just stand there for like 5 minutes and they will find you a task because you are a pair of empty hands. That's what I did to start. I wanted to start helping serving feast. I went into the kitchen. They told me there was nothing to do. I stood at the door for about 5 minutes and I was given a pot to stir or something.
Okay.
And after that, they were willing to kind of accept me and teach me.
So we also like to be timely here at Amtgard Leadership University, so things are wrapping up. Closing remarks, 30 seconds, a minute. What's the one thing or two things that you want to make sure everybody takes away that's watching this right now? Kenshin, we'll start with you.
Start with me. I want to go back to the cleanliness thing, the food safety thing. Make sure that you're wearing gloves. Make sure you're changing your gloves on a regular basis. Make sure you're washing your hands if you can. Make sure that your food that needs to be hot stays hot. Use a thermometer. Like, you can go to Walmart and you can buy a food thermometer real cheap. So just watch your temperatures, and do a little research before you go into something like this on what's safe and what isn't.
Okay, Tyedye.
Most commonly forgotten items seem to be drink mix, gloves, and soap and towels. So think about how you're going to clean these pots after you use them. You may need to clean them in the middle so that you can reuse them.
Sort of along the lines of the pre-cook and the rehearsal,
Yeah.
right?
Don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to accept help. Most of the people out here, I would say a good, not so much half, but a third of the people out here aren't really here to play Amtgard. They're here to enjoy the scenery, and they're here to want to do stuff to better the game and whatnot. And there's plenty of help out there. You just can't do it all yourself. It is a group effort.
Crom?
I think what I would like to say is, if this is something you're passionate about and you want to do, build a team. Find people in your immediate area, your friends that are like, I really like that, right? Differing talents. Build a team. Work together. That builds camaraderie. It makes it fun all the way around. And I forgot the last point. Sorry, but all in all, logistics, build a team, have fun.
Well, I tell you, I know you guys are very busy getting ready for feast tonight, so I really appreciate everybody, though, taking the time out of their schedule, coming out and spending some time with us. I got a lot of it. I hope everybody else did. So if we could, just a quick round of applause for our panel members.
Thank you, guys.
Again, thank you guys for sharing some time with us.